Alright, so I want to talk about something that's been sitting with me for a while. Not disrespect in the obvious way, like someone yelling at you or being outright rude. That kind is easy to spot. I mean, the quiet kind. The kind that slips in wearing a smile. You know the type. Someone makes a joke at your expense in front of others. Someone constantly forgets to include you. Someone talks over you like your sentence didn't even land. And every time you've got a split second to decide, do I say something or do I let it go again? Most of us let it go again. And again. And again until letting it go quietly becomes our whole personality. I used to be pretty good at reading people, genuinely, not bragging, just fact. Growing up, I was one of those kids who got along with basically everyone, moved through different social circles without much friction. And when you spend enough years like that, you start noticing patterns other people miss. You learn the difference between someone who's just blunt and someone who is testing you, testing to see what they can get away with. Because that's what disrespect actually is. Underneath it all, it's not really about the joke or the interruption or the thing they said. It's a test, a probe. Will this person push back? Or can I do this again next time, a little bigger? And here's the part that took me way too long to understand. People aren't always doing this maliciously. A lot of the time, it's not even conscious. It's just momentum. Once someone learns that a certain behavior toward you gets no resistance, that behavior becomes the default. Not because they're a villain twirling a mustache somewhere, just because nothing ever told them to stop. So let's actually build out a scenario. Hypothetical, but I guarantee at least one part of it is going to sound familiar. Say you've got a coworker. We'll call him Dale, because every office has a Dale. Dale's not a bad guy on paper, friendly enough. But Dale has this habit in meetings of finishing your sentences for you, not to help, to redirect. You'll be halfway through an idea, and Dale jumps in with right, what she's trying to say is, and suddenly it's his idea now, dressed up in his words, said with his confidence. First time, you brush it off. Everyone does that sometimes, right? Second time, you feel that little flicker of annoyance, but you tell yourself you're being sensitive. Third time, it's in front of your manager, and Dale gets the nod of approval for your idea. Now here's the fork in the road. Most people, in that moment, do one of two things. They either explode, which almost never lands the way you want it to, because now you're the difficult one, or they swallow it, again, and go quiet for the rest of the meeting, replaying it in their head for the next 3 days instead of actually dealing with it. There's a third option. And it's not about being aggressive, it's about being unshakably calm while still drawing a line. That's the whole trick. Nobody teaches you. Think about what actually happens physiologically when someone disrespects you. Your body doesn't know the difference between social threat and physical threat. Not really. Heart rate ticks up. Something clenches. That's not weakness. That's just biology doing its job a little too well for the modern world. The people who seem to handle disrespect effortlessly aren't people who don't feel that spike. They just don't let the spike drive the car. There's an old line, goes back to Eleanor Roosevelt, actually. The idea that nobody can make you feel small without you handing them permission to do it. I used to think that was just a nice poster quote. Turns out it's closer to an operating instruction than a platitude. Because the moment you actually believe that, the whole equation changes. Dale isn't the one with power in that meeting. You are. You're just not using it yet. So what does using it actually look like? Not yelling. Not a comeback. Just naming it, plainly, in real time. Hang on, let me finish. Said calm, said flat, no heat behind it. That's it. That's the whole move half the time. Not a speech. 4 words and steady eyes. And here's why that works so well. It removes the game entirely. Dale's whole strategy depends on you either not noticing or noticing and staying quiet about it. The second you name it out loud, without any anger attached, you've taken away his only 2 options. He can't pretend it wasn't happening, because you just said it happened. And he can't accuse you of overreacting, because you didn't react at all. You just stated a fact. This is something Napoleon Hill circles around a lot in his writing. even if he's usually talking about it in terms of building wealth rather than social situations. This idea that self mastery, self discipline over your own reactions, is the actual foundation everything else gets built on. Money, relationships, respect, none of it holds up long term if you can't first hold your own temperature steady when someone pokes at you. The people who get walked on aren't usually the weakest people in the room. They're just the ones who never practiced holding that line calmly, so when the moment comes, they only have two gears: silence or explosion. There's no third gear installed. That's the actual skill gap. Not confidence, not toughness, just a missing gear. And look, I get why nobody installs it. Nobody teaches this stuff. You don't take a class on how to say, hang on, let me finish without your voice shaking. You just get thrown into rooms full of Dales your entire life and you're expected to figure it out through trial and error, usually while replaying old humiliations in the shower at 11 p.m. for absolutely no reason. So here's a thought experiment for you. Think back to the last time someone talked over you, dismissed you, took credit, whatever the flavor was for you. Don't relive the whole thing, just notice this. What did you actually do in that exact moment? Not what you wish you'd done, what you actually did. Most people, when they're honest, will say nothing, or they laughed it off, or they got quiet. That's not a character flaw, that's just an untrained reflex. And reflexes can be trained. That's genuinely the good news buried in all of this. This isn't some fixed trait where some people are just naturally assertive and the rest of us are doomed to get run over in meetings forever. It's closer to a muscle that almost nobody's ever been shown how to use. We're going to get into exactly how you train that muscle, the actual mechanics of it, step by step, including what to do when it's not a coworker but someone with real leverage over you, like a boss or family, because that changes the calculus completely. But before we get there, I want that one idea to sit with you for a second. Every time you let something slide that shouldn't have slid, you're not being the bigger person. You're just teaching someone what they can keep doing to you. And the wild part? Most of them will thank you, eventually, for finally telling them to stop. Anyway, let's actually get into the mechanics, because just be calm is useless advice on its own. Nobody's ever calmed down by being told to calm down. You need something to actually do with your hands and your mouth in that moment, or the advice just evaporates the second you're back in the room with Dale. So here's the first mechanic, and it sounds almost too simple to matter: the pause. Before you say anything, you take 1 full second longer than feels natural. That's it. That 1 second does two things at once. It breaks the automatic reflex, the swallow it or explode reflex, because reflexes only fire instantly. If you interrupt the timing, you interrupt the whole reaction. And second, it changes how you land. A response that comes half a second slower reads as controlled. The exact same words, fired off instantly, read as defensive. Same sentence. Completely different message. Timing alone will do half the work for you. Second mechanic, and this one took me actual years to get comfortable with, is saying the thing plainly instead of dressing it up. We're addicted to softening. Sorry, this might be a weird thing to bring up, but no. Cut all of that. Hang on, let me finish. Doesn't need a preamble. The apology wrapping is what makes people feel like they can push back on you saying it. A flat, undecorated sentence is very hard to argue with because there's nothing attached to argue with. You're not asking permission to have a boundary. You're just stating where it is. Third, and this is the one people skip because it feels awkward: silence after you say it. Don't fill the space. Don't soften it with a laugh right after. Don't immediately explain yourself further. You say the line, and then you just let it sit there in the air. Most people cannot handle silence, so they'll fill it themselves, usually with something close to an apology. If you rush to fill it for them, you've just handed the moment right back. Those three things, the pause, the plain sentence, the silence after, that's the entire mechanical core of it. It's not complicated. It's just deeply unfamiliar, because almost nobody grew up practicing it. Now, the harder question, the one I flagged at the end of the last stretch. What do you do when it's not a Dale from accounting? What do you do when it's someone who actually has leverage over your life? A boss who can fire you, a parent, a partner, someone where just walk away isn't a real option, at least not immediately. This is where the calculation actually changes. And I want to be honest about that, instead of pretending the same 3-step move works identically in every context. Because it doesn't. And anyone who tells you it does hasn't actually had a boss like that. With leverage situations, the goal shifts. It's not about winning the moment. It's about not eroding yourself while you play a longer game. Because here's the trap with power imbalances. The person on the disrespecting end usually knows they have leverage, and they're often counting on the fact that you won't risk the relationship to call it out. So the win condition isn't shut it down instantly. The win condition is don't let this become the story you tell yourself about who you are. Concretely, that looks different. With a boss, it often means the calm naming still happens, but privately, later, not in the room in front of everyone. Hey, when you cut me off in that meeting, I want to finish those thoughts next time. Said flat, said once, not repeated 3 times, not turned into a whole campaign. You're not trying to humble them. You're just leaving a marker that you noticed, and that you expect it not to become a habit. Bosses who are decent will actually respect that far more than they respect silence, because silence, to them, often just reads as agreement. With family, it's messier, because the history runs so much deeper than any one moment. A comment from a parent doesn't just land in that instant. It lands on top of 20 years of the same comment, slightly reworded. That's part of why family disrespect stings so much harder than a coworker's ever could. You're not just responding to the sentence, you're responding to the whole pattern behind it. The same 3 mechanics still apply, but the pause needs to be longer, and the plain sentence needs to be even flatter, because emotion is already preloaded in that relationship before you even open your mouth. And here's something worth sitting with. Sometimes, with the people who have real leverage over you, the actual move isn't a sentence at all. Sometimes it's just quietly deciding, internally, that you're not going to absorb it as truth anymore, even if you don't say a single word out loud in that moment. There's a difference between I let this comment slide and I let this comment slide and I believed it a little. The first one is a strategic choice. The second one is what actually damages people over time. You can choose the first without the second. That distinction alone will save you more peace of mind than almost anything else in this video. I think what nobody tells you, growing up, is that being liked by everyone and being respected by everyone are not the same project. You can spend your whole life optimizing for the first one and end up with a room full of people who enjoy your company and none of whom would think twice before speaking over you, taking credit for your work, or testing exactly how much you'll swallow before you push back. Being well liked was never actually the goal. It was just the easier, more comfortable substitute for the goal, and a lot of us, myself very much included, mistook one for the other for a long time. There's a reason old school thinking on this, going back through stuff like Hill's writing again, or honestly a lot of Stoic material too, keeps circling back to the same core idea: you don't control what people do. You only ever control what you allow to register as acceptable. That's not a throwaway line, that's basically the entire operating system. 2 people can experience the exact same disrespectful comment, and one of them carries it around for a week, and the other one just doesn't, because they decided in real time that it didn't get to count. Same input, completely different output. The variable isn't the other person. It's never been the other person. It's what you do with the half second right after. So here's where I want to leave this. Not with a neat little bow, because this stuff genuinely takes reps, not a checklist. But if you take one thing out of these last 30 minutes, let it be this. Disrespect isn't really a test of how tough you are. It's a test of how clearly you've decided what you'll allow. Most people never actually sit down and decide that on purpose. It just gets decided for them, by default, one swallowed comment at a time. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to stop that pattern. You just have to be the one person in the room who stopped agreeing to it. Appreciate you sticking around for this one. See you in the next.